be forever.
Forgive me for a second. I was a little off kilter this morning and last night because with the Metropolitan supposed to have been here, and unfortunately wasn't because he's sick, I hadn't intended on actually giving a sermon. So I have notes, and as memory serves, I tend to go a little off the rails if I have to look back at what I wrote. So forgive me for that in advance. But I was also surprised last night because, as not luck would have it, but as God would have it, I was sort of given a sermon. It was dropped in my lap. I was reading, and then one thought started to connect to one another, and so on and so forth, and then suddenly I jumped out of bed and told Bonnie I have to go write this down before I forget about it the next morning. But for all of you who were alive during the sort of fad of pet rocks, you'll understand that there was a value given to this idea of having a rock that you could just keep, right? If anybody remembers that, you can at least nod approvingly that I've hit the nail on the head. But, so I brought one, thankfully vaguely heart-shaped. And I want you to tell me if you think that it can hear, if it can see, if it has feelings. Because we know that the five senses tend to be missing from it, but can it comprehend? And generally, the answer is a resounding no. We realize that we can't get anything out of a rock. And so, what I thought of in regards to this, the reason why I have one with me, is that we are told in Holy Scripture, I believe it's in the book of Isaiah, it said, I will give to them hearts of flesh, so as to take from them their hearts of stone. And something that I wanted to consider today, not because of the entirety of the gospel, but because of the way that Christ ends not only this parable, but other ones as well. He ends it by saying, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And this tends to seem relatively pointless. Obviously, if you have ears to hear it, you're hearing what he's saying. But I wanted to specifically point out this idea of a difference in hearing and comprehending. And I didn't have the chance to apologize before I potentially embarrass this person, so I won't mention them by name. But one of our church youth had said something to me, and it stuck with me that kind of also led to this sermon. This person had said to me, it's what it hears like. That exact sentence. It's what it hears like. Which, obviously, is not a sentence that we would all gather as appropriate English. We would say, that's what it sounds like. But for the point of the gospel today, that's what we need to be looking for, is what it hears like. What do we hear? Because there's a difference between perception of sound and actual hearing and comprehension. All of us can recognize that if somebody else is talking, or if somebody else is trying to explain something to us, there is a perception of sound. We can recognize that it's happening. But to hear it, to listen, and to comprehend is what Christ gets at when he gives this command after certain parables. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. If you are hearing me right now, if these words are coming to you, understand them. This is what he is trying to get at. You are hearing me. These words are reaching you. Let them actually sink in. Don't just recognize that I've said something. Realize what I've said. And this is this idea that we have to latch on to. Is, do we listen or do we comprehend? Do we pay polite attention, or do we actually give of ourselves to take in what we are hearing? And there's this idea that was where I got from the book last night that I was reading. And this idea of listening for God's voice. People were asked at a seminar whether or not and when they might have heard the voice of God. And I don't think that anybody has heard a booming voice or a gentle whisper speaking things into our heart as if we hear somebody whispering in our ear. But it's rather that understanding of, do we know when God is trying to tell us something? Have we heard it? And one of the priests who was in the crowd had given the example that he heard God's voice in a grocery store. And of course, the person hosting the seminar was a little surprised because first, he admitted, I've never once heard God's voice in this grocery store, and I've been there thousands of times. And the example that the priest gave was that in front of him in the line of the grocery store, a mother gave her daughter $1 and pointed to a homeless man and told her to go over. The daughter gave $1 to this homeless man and then came back. And her mother said no and pointed again to the homeless man, and she went over and the little girl gave him a hug. And then came back. And the mother, that was the lesson that she wanted. Now, of course, this is decades ago, and none of us are probably going to tell our children to hug strangers, but besides the point, that priest had recognized that God was speaking to him in this example he was allowed to see for how he needed to start thinking of being kind to other people and the way in which he was meant to reach out to those in need with that true compassion and that true example that that daughter had been taught. And there's a difference that we all sort of face in listening to God and then listening for God's voice. We can all listen to God because the directions that God gives to us are in the Holy Scripture, in the commandments, in everything that we've been given by the church and its holy tradition. We can listen to God. We know what He's already told us. And then we can specifically, in our own lives, listen for God to see what God is going to try to tell us. And when we listen to Him, are we understanding what He's saying? Are we giving that actual comprehension? Are we giving it the time of day that we will actually let it sink into our hearts? And then, most importantly, do we care? Do we take all this as important? Or are we only hoping to sort of gather what it sounds like and not what it hears like? Is that what we're focusing on? And so, I wanted to end today with this idea that I'm going to leave the stone on the tetrapod so that you all can sort of give it a look, maybe contemplate it as you come up. But the idea needs to be, as you come past and you look at the stone, is my heart like this, or have I been given something else? When I hear God, when I listen for God, am I just recognizing that sound is happening? That I'm being told something? Or am I letting it sink in? Is my heart a stone? Or have I been given a heart of flesh? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Glory be to Jesus Christ.
Glory be forever.